Hey guys, how's it going? It's Kara here with another Exos Heroes video. In today's video, I'm going to be going over FC TANTALO. I'm going to be doing a lot more hero guides here. I'm going to be starting with TANTALO, a lot more to come, so we're going to try to cover as many heroes as possible. Goal of this is going to be to go over their kit, just how good I think they are, what content I would use them in, and then how much investment I would put into these characters. Let's break down his kit and just talk about how good he is. There's a lot to his kit here when it comes to his passive. First thing is going to be the normal block 2 passive. Afflicts all enemies with provoke for 10 turns if an ally takes damage and their health falls below 30%, and grants heal over time to self that heals for 20% of the attack every turn for 5 turns. Grants mana 1 mana if own health is at 20% or less when triggered. So very useful passive for a tank style character. If someone gets low, they come in and try to save them. So a very useful passive. Then he has the unleashed potential effect here. This is when you fully go through the tree on his passive. You get this effect here, which is reduces all allies damage by 15%. Can't be stacked. Block characters get this passive. So that's why they're really useful on a team, because there's this passive here, which reduces the all allies damage by 15%. But then there's characters that are... Then there's, for example, cleanse characters that have the unleashed potential effect of reduces damage against all allies by 30%. This is worded weird because it's reduces damage against all allies, which means its AoE moves are reduced by 30%. So that's a very important distinction, and that's why both of them are really important to have on a team. You have one person covering just all damage, even though it's a less percentage modifier, and then you have the AoE reduction as well from a cleanse style character. So that's another reason why block characters are really nice to invest in. And then we have the Dragon Knight Blessing passive. This is very useful for Holy Dragon Grounds. This is to help do damage in phase 2 of the dragon. So this is not only a good passive for being able to do damage in phase 2, it helps you survive phase 4. Because it increases damage dealt to dragon with the dragon skill of order activated by 250%. So characters like this actually do damage in phase 2. That is why it's because of this part of the passive. Then in phase 4, when the dragon gets significantly harder, you want to have the second part, which is decreases the enhanced dragon fang effect used by nature element dragon of order by 20%. So this would be just purely for the nature day of challenges, and it's going to increase phase 4 of the dragon, or decrease the damage of phase 4 of the dragon by 20%. So you want to stack as many of these passives on that day if you want to try to survive that part of the encounter and get to the max amount of damage. Okay, then he has the Heartstrike passive. This is a very in-depth passive, but inflicts Heartstrike level 1 to one enemy with the highest current health when the battle starts. Increases level of the mark when a marked target is damaged by an ally with the Heartstrike skill. Gains 1 mana per enemy mark level at the start of turn. The mark's effect stacks as the level increases. All effects can't be removed. Inflicts Heartstrike level 1 to one enemy with the highest current health when the mark target dies. So this is it essentially starts on the person with the highest amount of health, and then as you do damage, or characters with the Heartstrike passive of this faction, so there's multiple characters of this faction that have this passive, as you do damage, it's going to increase that stack, and it's actually really impactful on how good of a passive, like what the stacks do. So the first one, this is just off the start of the game. The person with the highest amount of health on the enemy team is going to have their attack speed of the target decreased by 20, which is really good because it's going to make sure that... So what attack speed does in this game is it's just very straightforward. It's just turn order. So if you have the highest, you're going to go first. If you have the second highest speed, you go second. And it affects the turn order of the game. There's no turn meter or anything like that in this game. So decreasing the attack speed of the target by 20 means, like, let's say, for example, you have a Xeon and they have a Xeon, 20 speed is going to be a massive difference, and your Xeon's going to go before their Xeon. It's really that simple. So it's actually really useful, especially in this game. There's a lot of mirror matches. So your version of that character is going to go first before their version of that character. Level 2 is decreases defense of the target by 1,000. This used to be a very large percentage, and earlier you are into the game, 1,000 defense is going to be massive. But as the game keeps progressing with the amount of stats people are getting, 1,000 defense, this is eventually going to keep getting more and more outscaled. For example, in the chapter 15 of the story, people have like 40k defense. So 1,000 defense doesn't do anything anymore. Whereas characters nowadays, My version has 6,500. I've seen people in like the, I want to say like 8K range. So 1,000 defense used to be almost like all of your defense, whereas that in my case at least, it's not reducing nearly as much as it used to. So just keep that in mind with this passive, even though the other parts of the effect don't really degrade like that. Then the last one, Heart Strike level 3, deals 200% damage to all enemies upon activation. Status effect afflicts the target with blind. Over time, deals 2,000 damage to targets every turn. So very useful passive here. This really locks someone out. So you take their character, you get them on Heart Strike level 3. They're locked out for essentially the rest of the game. And then next passive is going to be Overpower. Decreases critical damage of the target by 300%. And then lastly, Sworn Friend grants damage immunity one time when an ally takes critical hit damage. So it's just this combination right here is what's making him so oppressive in the current arena environment. If you're watching this way down the line, maybe he won't be meta right now, but at the moment, he's one of the premier units in the game. Absolutely one of the best, if not the best unit currently. And it's due to this right here, being able to help your team survive. Then not only that, he has a lot more to his kit when it comes to his A1 and his A2 here. His A1 deals 127% damage to all enemies. Then overtime effect poisons targets, dealing 44% damage every turn for 3 turns. Then increases the attack of allies by 40% of own attack for 9 turns when the skill hits. And then increases block of allies by 42 for 18 turns when the skill hits. So something like this, I really like that. Not only does he have passives and he has everything that makes him useful, but his boosts to his team are actually impactful. Most of the time you're seeing something like this, which increases the attack of allies by 40% for 9 turns, and that's it. It doesn't do damage, and it only lasts 9 turns, which still is not that long. But when you combine it with something that actually does damage, and he has the Heart Strike passive that is allowed to proc each time, and he's increasing the block of allies by 42, but the big thing here is that it's 42 for 18 turns, which is, in this game, actually, when you're doing buff increases like this in this game, it needs to be for a long period of time. These 9 turn things, if this is it, like if you compare this to other characters that buff attack, usually that's all they do. Or it might be, it does damage, like single target damage, increases the attack for 7 turns, something like that, and then it's done. Whereas this actually, when you compare it to other things, it's a big outlier, but this is the kind of effect that it needs to be if it ever wants to be useful, in my opinion. So another reason why this move is really good. Then he has this A2 here, deals 262% damage to one enemy. Over time, poisons the target, dealing 92% damage every turn for 4 turns. Decreases the attack of the target by 62% of own attack for 8 turns. And then he has this Unleashed Potential effect, deals additional 45% of own defense when the attack hits. So this effect also applies for this move. I just don't have it leveled up fully. That's another reason why he actually scales really well later into the game, because he's not only getting the effects of his defense, but also his attack as well. So there's a reason why he actually hits really hard later on. It's because you're taking his attack, his damage amount is his defense. It's a percentage of his defense and all of his attack, which makes him hit like a truck, which is very good. And an important thing to note about these modifiers, the decrease attack and the increase attack, are both affected by your combat power. So you want to keep that in mind, whereas the further you get this guy up, the more that the modifier actually gets better in both ways. It gets better on the attack percentage increase and the attack percentage decrease. So really important to keep note of. One potential drawback of this guy's kit is that he applies poisons, which with First Guardian characters could constantly trigger their own passive. So you got to be very careful on when you're actually deciding to use his AoE, for example, even though it's a very good move and it's going to be increasing the attack and increasing the block and stuff, but it doesn't do much damage. So you potentially could be proccing First Guardian characters a ton, which is something to keep in mind. Whereas this single target move does so much damage because it's a significantly bigger burst to one character, and you get to just potentially just avoid the First Guardian character all on its own, and you're decreasing their attack. It's definitely a easier move to decide to do, and you don't have to worry about the ramifications of First Guardian passives, especially in PvP. So now that we got the kit out of the way, where would we use this guy? Essentially, this guy's easy. It's anywhere, everywhere you possibly can use him. You're going to want him on your team. If you could have 3 of them, you would have 3 of them on your tag team. He's super useful in PvP content, or in PvE content, in everything. He's one of the best characters for high-level campaign, one of the best characters for the Holy Dragon Grounds, just anything. The only drawback would be in Holy Dragon Grounds would be on days where it's not nature, then he won't be able to actually do damage in that later part, but he's totally worth bringing anyway because of his passes when it comes to being able to reduce crit damage and give you damage immunity. So incredible character. Some last things to note would be like team synergies. So he is a Greenland character. Here, I just wanted to show it. So his nationality is Greenland. So if we look at Greenland characters here, Bathory, Rara, so already really good characters. He's part of that faction. And the reason why nationalities are important is because your signature force is going to be increased directly by, it increases the nation usually. For example, if you increase the signature force of Bathory, you're going to be really improving that Greenland nation. But there's other things too. So as you go further on in your signature force, you're really going to want to keep in mind of this one right here, where when you get 2 points, you're going to have provides buff to heroes of the nation if there are 2 or more Greenland nationality heroes. So having 2 on the team is going to give you 15% attack, defense, and HP. Very important to keep note of. And then later on, you're going to want to keep note of this one right here on 2-1. Provides buff to heroes of the nation if there are 3 or more Greenland nationality heroes. Attack percentage by 30. And this is a really important thing to keep note of is that this 15% and this 30% are both additive, as in you're going to get the full 15% and the full 30% buff on your heroes. It's not just like the 15% gets upgraded to 30% like this right here, where it specifically says it goes from like 4,000 to 8,000 damage. It's going to go from 15%, you keep all that, and you're getting an additional 30%. So it's absolutely impactful to make sure that you're building your comps around the right synergies. So him just being Greenland, which is already a really good nation, it's a no-brainer to make sure you're sticking him with at least 2 or 3 of that same faction when you get to that point in signature force. So definitely keep that in mind. So that's pretty much it. When it comes to Tantalo, amazing character. If you could pull for him, definitely scoop him up because I don't think he's going anywhere. If there's ever a character that they potentially could nerf in this game, I would assume it's him because he's just that good. To give you an idea of just how good I at least think he is, how much he's impacting the meta currently in the game. The only other character I can think of that would be nerfable is FC Rara. It's just when it comes to these games, especially when there's money involved, nerfing usually doesn't happen that often, so that's why they don't really do that. What they'll do is they're heavily incentivized to not nerf anything. They're heavily incentivized to just release something even more busted. So that's why you're probably not going to see that. But that's it for this review. If there's any more questions specifically about FC Tantalo, ask them down in the comments below. Also, be sure to join our Discord. There's actually a ton of people here joining here on the Discord, so be sure to hit that up if you have any questions regarding Exos Heroes. So with that, guys, I am out. Peace.